And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Tests, they're saying that kids are dumber now than they were 20, 30 years ago. But however, Kanye is here to save the day. He wants smart kids. So we're going to talk about his new school opening up and what we like and dislike about it. And then a really busy sports weekend: Phillies, Yankees, Astros, Penn State, Bradford County, high school football. We want to dive around and just kind of hit little tidbits on all of them. And then, Mark, I'm actually excited to hear. I feel like you're going to educate me during your minute of uninterruptedness. I'm excited for it. There's a 45-year anniversary.
Don't I always educate you?
And welcome to the Midday Show. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. I really,
Okay.
I'm good. I had a good weekend, so I'm good.
Okay, this might be an interesting conversation for us because you don't think your kids are dumb. However, kids across the country are failing standardized tests at an all-time high, really a high of almost 30 years. The New York Times is reporting they've been hitting this now for almost a month. But U.S. students in most states and across almost all demographic groups have experienced setbacks in both math and reading, according to the national exam released on Monday. A lot of different studies, a lot of different tests were used to come up with this decision and how they basically accumulate a national score. Obviously, the number one cause that people are lending it to is the pandemic. I don't want to say they're blaming it because I'm sure there is correlation, causation, all those different things, but they're saying the pandemic is playing a part in it. I go back and forth on the concept because standardized testing I struggle with standardized testing. I was never a great test taker. Were you a great test taker?
That's what I thought you meant. You struggled with standardized testing.
Yes, I did. Like literally did.
There are strategies to it. There is, like, literally with everything else. If you are coached on just people like, oh, it's just you answer as many questions right as you can. Well, yes, but there is mindsets. Well, I'll give you that. I'll give you, if you have 30 seconds, I'll give you an example. When I took my NTEs, you had to take NTEs, right, for English?
I don't know. We had to take the state test. I don't know if we took NTEs.
Okay, it's the national teacher exam. We did when to be a secondary math teacher. I had to take everyone has to take one, and then you have to take one in your specific field. So I had to take mine at Penn State, and they only offered at certain places, and Penn State University was one, and I was there. And when I walked in, not to do any racial profiling or anything like that, but when I walk in this room of these 50 math people, I was the dumbest person in the room. I could just tell. You were just looking. Okay. I walked into the Big Bang Theory, and I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So I sit down to take the test, and no calculators are allowed. And it was, back in the day. And you had 2 hours to take it, and right away. So they hand the test, and it's one of those you have to rip it open. It's sealed shut with a little label. And so the first thing I did was I flipped to the back, and I was like, well, how many questions are there? And there was 120 questions. And it does not take a math major to know if I have 2 hours and I have 120 questions, that's a minute per question. So I said, if I read it once, what?
Go ahead.
I said, if I read the question once,
yes,
and I have no idea what they're asking, I'm just going to guess and go on. If I read it and I have a clue, then I'm going to try to figure it out. But I can't take like 10 minutes to figure out one problem. It's counterproductive. So honest to God, when I got done 10 minutes early, I was the first one done. And when I'm walking through the crowd to look, I'm looking at people's things. Some people are on like question 85. They're on question 95. So like I know because of my strategy, I read all the questions. So if I knew 118, 119, if I knew how to do it, and it's multiple choice, so you can narrow it down. So I got through it. And when I got my scores back, I did way better than I should have. But I know just by looking at some of these kids just blindly guessed the last 25 questions or the last 30 questions because they ran out of time. So there are these little aspects of this where you're like, well, if you're going to, how smart are you at math? Well, there's also like this grasp of how much time do you have. And there are lots of things about it. I think one of the most important, this is going way off on a tangent. One of the most important things of standardized testing is the ability to say, I don't really know this one, guess, and just wipe your hands and move on.
No, it's true. Part of the reason I wanted to talk to you about this, like wanted to bring it up, I don't know if a standardized test, like the national test that they're using to grade these kids, when I look at like a third grader, a fifth grader, like some of these kids are listening, reading, hearing things at a level that I just never did. They understand the way the world works. They understand connotations of things. They know who certain people are that I had no idea who these people were and things like that. And I just don't know how you measure that on a test. I understand that if an eighth grader may not be able to like do the Pythagorean theory, like I understand
theorem.
I understand that I understand they're going to get docked, but at the same time, like they're doing things and capable of things that we couldn't even, I mean, just coding and real world solving and like life decisions and understanding certain things. They're so far beyond what the average eighth grader was 30 years ago. And now we get these test scores coming back and they're like, oh my gosh, like they don't know how to do like math that majority of them are never going to use. Like, I don't know. I'm one of the few people that sees these test scores come back, and I think it's way overblown, personally. Now, the lower levels, like your second, third, fourth grade, those basics, like the building blocks of math and reading, yes, like that is unbelievably concerning. But some of this stuff that we're still like standardized testing in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, I just wouldn't panic. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of people in the world that never knew how to do it 20, 30 years ago, and they are huge members of society. They matter a ton. They fulfill life-rewarding jobs. Like, I just don't know if it matters.
Well, listen, the reason they do it is because it's easily measurable. But when you know this because you had, your education background that you taught, high school. And there are basically 7 different ways that people learn on the basics. Some people by doing, some people by reading, some people by watching. There's all those, and I know there's terms for all that stuff, modeling and all that stuff. And then there's, I don't know how many different levels of intelligence there are. So you're absolutely right. There are the kids. I will say this: the academic kids, the standardized testing are very, very good at measuring and comparing the academic kids. But when you take a middle of the road student, every middle of the road student is good at something. They're good at some things. They suck at some things. And it doesn't necessarily measure what they're good at and what they suck at. And the funny thing is the highly intelligent kids suck at a lot of things too. It just doesn't, like, this test is their wheelhouse, so they get to thrive. But yes, the standardized tests, we've just talked about this. I don't know if we talked about this on the air. And again, this is not where the topic was supposed to go. The jobs that are making 6 figures, the blue collar, the VOTEC, the HVAC, the plumbing, the heating, the electrical, these things that kids who are normal kids, who are mechanically inclined kids, can make really, really good money nowadays. So when you're measuring intelligence, again, like, who's smart? Like, aren't they kind of smart too? So I'm with you. The reason I know the reason the schools do it is because it's like a scoreboard. You know who won the game, you know who lost the game, and it's easy. You run it through a machine and it spits out a number. But yes, it's flawed.
I was just going to add to your point. I just wrote a very handsome check for someone to come and make sure that the heating was ready to go this winter. And so, like, to your point, like, if you are mechanically inclined, these tests are not going to necessarily show it. I think there's just a lot of ways, like, being a language arts teacher before, and I've talked about this, you just started House of Dragons. I'm going to do a horrible Mark analogy, but you'll get the point. You just started House of Dragons, correct?
I'm 5 episodes in. Episode 5. I don't know which ones you think sucked. Episode 5 did not suck. It was the wedding scene.
Yes, it's very, very good.
Awesome.
But the point with that is House of Dragons, Game of Thrones, all these things, they have these unbelievably complicated names and relationships, and it's hard to keep track of these like specifics, like the names of things and all that stuff. But when you take a reading test, a lot of times that's what they're testing you for. Like, do you remember X or do you remember Y? But what was funny is we just watched the finale last night, and I basically predicted it. Like, I full out predict. I won't tell, no spoilers, but I full out predicted it. And my girlfriend and my cousin were looking at me like, how did you? And I was like, well, like in order to progress the story, like this had to happen. And so it was, and I'm saying all these things, but I can't tell you one person's name. I can't remember one location, like all these things. So if I were to take a reading test on it, I mean, I would have completely bombed, but I knew exactly what was going to happen because of reading the context clues and all those things. So I always struggle with these standardized tests. I don't think they're ever I think they're very good with building block fundamentals. Do you understand the very basic concepts of subjects? Anything beyond that, standardized testing really struggles and fails to find and measure those things and what people are actually comprehending.
With all that being said, though, they have such a database, and they know if they're down over 30 years, then they're down.
And I agree with that. Yes. And that's why I said, I think for the lower levels, like for the fourth grade, yes, that is alarming. Like the fact that kids are down, I think they said 26% in the fourth grade level in reading is down. And that to me is yes, because those are those building blocks, those fundamental pieces. But some of the 8th grade stuff and the 11th grade stuff, I don't know. Like once you're in 8th and 11th grade and you're starting to kind of figure out what you enjoy and what you're good at and what you're like, if you can't solve a certain equation in 11th grade, like, do I think that really is alarming? Like, I don't know. Are you going to be an engineer? Like, are you going to be an architect? If not, then I don't know. Like, maybe it's not that alarming. I don't know. Just an opinion.
No, but I do get, and I agree with everything you just said in general, but basically what they're saying is the pandemic has had an academic effect and our measurable numbers are down. And it's especially, I've heard elementary kids. It would be interesting to talk to different teachers from different levels. But if you have elementary kids during the pandemic when they were stuck home, if mom and dad didn't want to sit down and read with them, then if mom and dad just wanted to pop in a video or turn on YouTube and let the kids go, then their skill development was not. And at that time where your brain is supposed to be, growing and growing, the stunted growth could be, I don't say irreparable, but it was certainly, society will know there was a group of kids that the timing of it was brutal. And they just probably went for a year without reading.
Yeah. No, it's going to, especially for the younger groups, it is going to be very, very, very interesting. Weis Markets, grocery rewards, gas rewards. Thank you to Weis Markets for being the title sponsor of the Midday Show. Thanksgiving is coming up. Halloween right around the corner. Everything you need. Be sure to get your grocery needs at Weis Markets.
Don't wait till October 31st to go buy your bags of candy. Go.
Yeah. Now. I'm new to this. I've never been a part of the giving out of the candy. Is that, how do I put that? I've never been, not the trick-or-treater. I have been the trick-or-treatee. We call them the hander-outer, but I don't know if there's an official. Yeah. Yeah, never been a part. So yes, I will have to be making.
So here's the trick. Just don't turn your light on if you don't want people coming to your door.
That's what I've been told.
Or you can like stand there and like yell at the kids a little bit, like the old man that you are. And get out of my yard, get off my lawn, all those things. And you'll have a good time.
I can't tell them to get off my porch. Let's do this.
I think you're gonna have fun with it.
I think we will. Kanye West started Donda Academy. I thought this would go well today because Kanye's been in the news a lot lately. I don't know if you've seen. He's made some pretty radical statements. People believe he might be having a health episode. He's claimed in the past before he's bipolar. He's had manic depression. And so right now it appears as if, not a doctor, but it appears as if he is having one of his episodes. He was on Piers Morgan lately. Around all of this, as all of this is going on, Kanye West has started Donda Academy, and some of the things that they implement are pretty fascinating. The first one I wanted to bring up to you, because we've talked a lot about the public school system versus kind of the non-boundary charter Catholic school system. At Kanye West School, in order to be a part of Donda Academy in California, every student and parent must sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement about the school. And I find this absolutely fascinating. I cannot begin to imagine if other schools, like I can't imagine walking into a school and having to sign an NDA about said school. I can't imagine parents having to sign an NDA about said school. I think my brain is so public school system oriented because that was my experience through life that I just can't imagine people not being willing to talk about their school system.
Well, I'm trying to think this through out loud. I mean, they're obviously going to talk about the school. What Kanye thinks he's built a better mousetrap.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want the kids to go around talking about the curriculum that he has come up with and what they're teaching because he's afraid everyone will copy it.
So interesting. I had not thought of it that way. So you're saying he looks at it as intellectual property. Yeah. Just like his music or like his fashion or anything else, his education is intellectual property that should not be duplicated, and thus the NDAs go out.
Yes, because I mean, obviously I haven't talked to Kanye lately,
right?
But he obviously, as we've talked about multiple times, there are certainly improvements that can be done to everything, but the school system's one of them because society's changed so much and technology's changed so much, and Kanye looks at it and thinks he can do better. And he, like, for all you want to say about Kanye, he's not dumb.
Oh, no. That's part of the problem. Part of the problem is, like, there are people that struggle with this, but he is a genius. Like, his IQ level is beyond the average IQ level, and people, I don't want to say people don't want to admit that, but because of his health and because of his episodes, I think people struggle admitting to that.
He's the mad scientist of life, if you will, and but he's brilliant, and he probably has come up with some things that are very creative and very outside the box, but effective. I mean, I'd be fascinated to know what the curriculum is, but obviously he thinks because he's not the only rich guy, and he's not the only creative guy.
I'm so glad you said that because here is some of the curriculum at the school.
Let's do this.
It's a private Christian school in conservative Los Angeles. That's how it's described on the Donda Academy website. Because it is a Christian school, every day opens up with daily worship services. This is to help the students reflect, to open up their minds, and to open up their hearts. This is, again, according to Donda Academy. So every day starts off with daily worship services. It is expected that kids participate in the choir. So there's some type of music involvement there. They also have a sports-focused school. Students are expected to participate in some sort of physical activity. They even offer parkour classes for students who may not want to participate in a competitive environment. So they're still competing. They're still physically active amongst themselves through parkour, but they do not have to necessarily compete against another individual or another team. Thoughts so far?
Okay, give me your definition. What is parkour?
Parkour is where they have to, it's climbing essentially. It's like fast-paced climbing. What's the most interesting and unique way you can get from point A to point B? And sometimes point A to point B is very simple. Sometimes point A to point B is like you're legitimately like climbing ropes course, like all these different things. So it just depends.
So I had a buddy. The only reason I know this, I have a buddy who he lived in Baltimore. And you're walking down the city streets, he'd run up like people's steps and jump off and all this. He just kept yelling hardcore parkour. And he would just.
That's parkour. And it's as, what's the word I'm looking for? It's as extravagant as you make it out to be, right? But the goal is to make it that. Like, as athletic as you can possibly be, get from point A to point B.
Well, okay, so far, he's got a kind of a typical, there's the music part, there's the physical education part, so he hasn't reinvented the wheel yet.
He hasn't. I will say this: the wanting kids to participate, the worship, choir, and then like the whole aspect of like physical activity without the competition aspect of it is interesting. Not because others, yeah, no, I understand that. What I'm saying though is like, to me, everything sounds more enriching of your life so far than a basic school. Like, let me put it to you this way. Having gone through public school, I went and said the Pledge of Allegiance, which is fine. I have no issue saying the Pledge of Allegiance before I go into school, but it might not be as enriching as a worship class if you're a religious person. I had to play a recorder. I did not get to be part of like a larger choir that like had to do certain things. So it sounds more enriching, right? Same thing with the physical activity. Like you're expected to participate, but if you can't, you can do these individual aspects where like you're challenging yourself, such as parkour, because that might be more enriching than standing still on a volleyball court that you have no interest in. To me personally, everything sounds more enriching, but that also could just be the sales pitch. I don't know.
Well, it is if you care. I mean,
yes.
Think of how many 15-year-olds are going to listen, every school system now, if you get out of it what you put into it. If you want to go learn, you want to be in the chorus and in the band, and if you want to go bust it in gym class, you can be in better shape. How many kids in gym class, if the gym teacher's like, you don't have to do anything today, they're like, okay, and they stand against the wall. Because like anybody who wants to be enriched and wants to better their life, like the school system is perfect for them. I can't imagine, other than the fact that, well, there's going to be rich kids coming. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of kids that are like gym class.
Everything you're saying is fair. So far you're a little out on this so far.
It's not as impressive as I thought. Keep going.
Okay. Students have core classes of language arts, math, and science. However, half of the day is dedicated to enrichment courses that the students pick from a widespread evaluation of what they're interested in. So it's a little your daughter goes to Vassar, right?
Vassar.
And you were talking about like it's kind of neat. They kind of like say, what do you want to study? And like you kind of figure out what it is you want to study. And then I don't know. So half of the day is kind of invested into these self-picked enrichment interest classes where they're basically coming up with what the course is.
But again, high school has the Common Core. They have the history, the reading, the other stuff. And then you have the enrichment classes. You don't have to take art, but the kids who like art do. You don't have to take wood shop, but the kids who like wood shop do. You don't have to take psychology. You don't have to take chorus.
But aren't those courses? But aren't those courses laid out for you? Like we're making a birdhouse. Like we're doing this. You know what I mean? Like you're not really dictating what the course is. And by the way, I'm not implying that kids should. I'm just trying to split the difference between this and that.
To a degree, I would think. I'm guessing in art, you have some freedom as to, like, they may say we're painting with oil and we're drawing or whatever. But then I don't know, wood shop. I'm sure there's parameters, but I'm sure there's especially as you move up. If you're in like wood shop 1 as a freshman, then you're like, we're making this. If you're in wood shop 3 as a junior or senior, I'm sure they're like, well, what do you want to make? All right. And then they just rubber stamp. So, I think this sounds very similar to public school, except it's called Donda.
Interesting. That's not what I expect you to say. Two other things just to note before we move off of this. The meals are reportedly served by Kanye's private chef. So food is top notch apparently. And then the basketball team is the Donda Doves, which, by the way, they are like nationally, I don't know if they're nationally ranked, but they are like they have Division I players on their academy basketball team.
The Donda what?
They're the Donda Doves because it's a Christian.
Oh, okay.
But they are like a nationally competitive basketball team. Like this is not like a rinky-dink.
Does this school already exist?
Oh yeah, it's running. Yes, it is. It's up and running. It is active.
How long has it been running?
At least a year and a half, according to this article.
Okay.
And then the other last
and
thing
listen, I will say this. I'm sure these basketball kids on the nationally ranked team, I'm sure they are academically exhilarated every day.
Every single day. They are also outfitted in Balenciaga uniforms and Yeezys.
I've heard of Yeezys.
Okay.
I don't know what is Balenciaga. I don't know what that means.
It would be a very, very nice uniform. Let's put it this way: most people would not want to sweat in the Balenciaga uniform. Let's just say that.
Okay.
But again, like they're like nationally competitive. Like they're like they have legit Division I athletes on.
Oh, I can imagine.
Their high school. Would you like to guess the cost to attend Donda Academy?
For the basketball players or for everyone else?
Let's say for everyone.
Okay. Because the basketball players are going for free.
Probably. I wouldn't do. I mean, there's a lot of that wouldn't be like any other school in the country.
Nope.
So
okay. How much per year? 30 grand.
15 grand if you sign your NDA. So if you sign the NDA, 15 grand, you can go to Donda Academy.
How many kids are there?
How many kids are? It's a good question. I don't know. The article did not say.
Huh.
I don't have that information for you. Carolyn brings up interesting. No mention of social studies or history. That is true. In the article, it does not list that as one of their core classes.
I mean, because there's also a sweet spot there. You need to have enough kids to have enough different teachers.
Right.
Because when you get a kid that, you can take your own class, kind of independent study-ish into what your field is. But if there's no one there that can really help you with it, then it's really independent, or now you're paying for YouTube models. So, so that's interesting too. Unless Kanye's going to fly in a specialist to meet with you. Did you ever see the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield?
I don't think so.
You should see it. It's classic. I think was it Vonnegut? He had to write a paper on something on like Kurt Vonnegut, and he hired Kurt Vonnegut to write it, and he got a C+.
That's great. That's fantastic.
So, anyway,
that was good. You want to talk about the Yankees before we go today?
Yeah, I mean that could probably be part of my afterthoughts too. But I did talk about this already with Carrie, who's a Penn State alum. Do you think? Obviously, the whiteout was this weekend. The whiteout has become very special. I didn't know this. Did you know this until I was watching the game? It started in the student section in like 2004, something like that. They said this during the very beginning of the broadcast. That the students just wore all white. They had a whiteout. Now it's spread, and it's an awesome event. They play now. I know Minnesota was on their backup quarterback and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's usually Ohio State. It's usually Michigan. It's something like that. Do you think there's any chance that they say, you know what? Hey, it's great. It's great winning the whiteout. I know that they had it against Auburn, I think, last year and won. Mm-hmm. I know they had it against Ohio State in 16 and won. So they've done very well during the whiteouts. But it's, as they say, you're supposed to schedule homecoming on a day when you're going to win. I wonder if they start to do it with like a good Big Ten. Like Minnesota's good, but they're not.
I think, well, what's funny, though, is if you looked at the end of that game, I'm not implying the stadium was empty. It was not. But certainly, I think people were leaving that game before it was over. And I think the concept of a whiteout is that you are there to try to push them over the edge, to try to help them get a win that maybe they shouldn't. I think that's how I take the whiteout personally.
And I agree. If I'm Ohio State, I don't want to play at Penn State.
Correct.
So
I agree with what you said. Like Minnesota had backup or third string? I can't remember which it was.
Yeah.
But you could tell. I mean, Minnesota was like there were offensive possessions where they didn't know what they were doing. There was I don't like as a former quarterback. I don't know if you noticed this or not. There was one possession where the quarterback had to walk up to the line and he went tight end, tackle, guard, center, guard, tackle, literally whispering into each person's ear what they were trying to do, went back into shotgun and still didn't get it off in time under the clock. it is just, I think if you're Ohio State or Michigan, it's one thing. If you're Minnesota, that was, I mean, it was an extra 20 points just having the whiteout, without a doubt.
You don't think? See, now I will tell you this: being a former quarterback, what he was whispering in their ear was, "Please protect me, please protect me, please protect me, please protect me."
Possibly. Possibly.
That's why he wanted to make sure he got every guy all the way down the line. But no, it's fun, and as far as high school, there were some really good games. Canton played really well against Jersey Shore.
Yeah,
I think it. They have kind of.
Did you watch it at all?
I did not see any of it, but I saw the score, and they kept it way closer than anyone else has. And I know it's 14-0 at halftime, and Canton has certainly. We knew that Canton was a legitimate in the argument to make a run at a state title, and this did nothing but solidify that. And the Troy Loyalsock game sounds like it was one for the ages. When you lose by a point, they scored. They went for two. They didn't kick it and go for overtime. They went for two and didn't make it. And Loyalsock got out with a 1-point win. And so yeah, it's what it's all about. And it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
And not as fun as Philly fans are having right now, but be that as it may.
Canton and Jersey Shore. You always move to the next one before I get to say.
Sorry.
Canton and Jersey Shore. No, it's fine. It cracks me up. Canton and Jersey Shore. I got to watch a lot of it on the YouTube stream, which I think they hit 1,500 streamers at one point on the YouTube stream for the football game.
I believe it.
I will say this: Canton and Jersey Shore's defense are significantly better than what people even think. I know that because you see, like, Jersey Shore puts up 70 points again, and you see Canton puts up their defenses and how they were able to kind of contain and kind of force other. It was very, very impressive what both teams did defensively. That's what I took from it more than anything
lately,
else.
From what I've seen from Jersey Shore, and I have not seen Canton, but from what I've seen from Jersey Shore, the thing about their defense that has been so impressive to me is not just they have size, but they have speed. And even their D-backs. Like, you get to high school, you'll find really good high school defensive backs that weigh 145 pounds that are just like and I'm trying to think of this year's team. I know they've had teams in the past where there was like they were big. They were big in the secondary, and they could run and they could hit. Yeah. And when you are, a lot of these kids would be playing linebackers at other schools, and they're not sacrificing because they're athletic as all get out. So that has really been one of the things that has helped. That has been part of the Jersey Shore success is they're not just fast; they're big and fast.
Yes. And you and I talk a lot about this. That loss is the most important game in Canton's season, without a doubt. That loss did more for them than any other football game in the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
If they win a state title, I would. And you were saying like what mattered. I think that game was significant.
Well, when they walk out, you wrote the article last week about all that was going on in Bradford County with the Troy Loyalsock game and the Canton. And we'd have people commenting, and people were saying, 48-0 Jersey Shore, and it's, Mercy Rule by halftime, and all these things that people expected. It was 14-0 at halftime. And so, yes, Canton, I think Canton walks away saying, if we played a best of 7 against Jersey Shore, we would probably get swept. But in the single A bracket where we fit and where we belong, we're not going to face anybody nearly that good. And if we can hang with them, we can hang with anybody. I
totally agree. Are you going to watch the World Series?
Yeah, yeah.
This is my nightmare, by the way.
This will be, I'm sure. Well, let me take this back. There will be Phillies fans that have been drunk all month because they're just happy they made the playoffs, and they're like, I'll stop drinking when we start losing, and they haven't yet. But so I'm guessing there will be entertaining nights out on the town watching the Phillies with Philly fans who are still just like, what is going on here? But then there will be other Phillies fans who are like, I'm staying at home. I'm watching by myself because I need to see the TV, which is me a lot. I don't blame that. If Dallas is in the Super Bowl, I'm watching at home so I can hear it. So I'm guessing I'm going to have fun watching some of them, but I'm guessing there might not be as many like, hey, let's all go out and watch the Phillies. I think Philly fans are going to hunker.
As a solid Braves fan and a casual baseball fan, if you said to me, rank the teams you do not want to cheer for in a World Series, honest to God, I think it would be, this was the list I sent. It's like 1 Astros, because I still despise them. I think it's 1B Yankees, because just like the money and everything else. And then it's like 1C Phillies, like all bunched together. And then all the way down at the bottom, it's like 4 Mets. And so this Phillies Astros World Series, I don't think I can enjoy it. I don't think there's one enjoyable thing for me about this World Series.
I was just thinking about Mets fans, and because they won 101 games, like they had a better record than the Yankees did in the regular season. They lost at the end, and they ended up, the Braves overtook them in like the last week because the Braves are still a damn good team, and so. Just like the Mets, and it's been all year, and they're like, this might be our year. And then at the end, they're like, oh, and then they lose in the first round. So they're obviously crushed. And then if you said like 2 weeks later, oh, by the way, the Phillies made the World Series, like Mets fans have to feel, fortunately, the Jets are winning, so they probably turned off baseball. But Mets fans just have to be looking at this thinking, oh, my gosh. Like, you're a Braves fan, so you obviously hate the Phillies and the Mets and all that because that's how it works. But you won the World Series last year. So like, all things being equal, you're good for a while. Like, you Mets fans have to be like, I can't believe the Phillies barely got in, and now they score 10 runs every day.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I'm trying to think how to say this without sounding like sour grapes. This Phillies team is good. And so I'm going to say all of this with a grain of salt. This Phillies team is an accident. Like, this whole concept didn't exist 12 months ago because you couldn't. Did they lose their first game in the wild card? I think they lost their first game.
I thought they beat the Cardinals.
Or do I have that backwards? Maybe I
think they beat the Cardinals 2 in a row.
There's 2 scenarios where like they don't even exist in like the pillars of baseball. Like, they shouldn't have even been in the original wild card. Like, they would not have made it.
And then they're the 6th seed, and it used to be 4. Well,
yes.
So only because COVID has won them a trip to the World Series.
Yes, and then there's one other example of like where they just wouldn't have existed. So this is truly like they are a team by accident. Like, this is, and listen, if I was a Phillies fan, oh my God, like this is better than being the 1 seed. Like, this is everything you would possibly want. There's no downside to it. Everything's great. This is really, they will enjoy this more than like the Utley, Howard, like all of that because of the circumstances.
And there is a lovableness to this collection of guys that is, there's nothing. Well, I mean, Bryce Harper makes $1 billion, but he looks like he should ride a motorcycle. It's he's just they are not a hoity-toity prim and proper. They are they have the resemblance of like a beer league softball team a little bit, and it is a very easy team to root for. So I'm not rooting for them, but if you were a Phillies fan, this is a very easy, and like as a Cowboy fan, we signed Greg Hardy once, and he had wife beating accusations, and there's sometimes you get guys, even if it's on your favorite team, who you're like, I can't root for him. This Phillies team, I think, is very easy to root for.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I agree with you. Houston has become the Darth Vader of baseball. They are the New England Patriots of baseball. They are that. If you don't live in Houston, everybody hates Houston.
Yeah, I cannot cheer. I honestly, I don't think I can watch it. It's just going to be miserable watching. I can't cheer for either team. Mark's minute of uninterruptedness. You told me about an anniversary right before the show.
Yeah, 45 years of Bat Out of Hell. Like a bat out of hell. We did a whole thing when Meatloaf passed away. And it is – we're at this time where these classic rock albums, they keep doing celebrations. But he is one of the great stories. We did a story about him. We did a segment on him once. But when you look at the kind of the the Lucky, the Feel Good. I know he did Hairspray on Broadway or whatever, but he was an abusive home, kind of ran away on the road at 19, and a success story, and then it all fell apart, and then he got it back, and then the history of his real name's Marvin, and Meatloaf, and this album that like should have never been, and when it was written. I think Rolling Stone magazine gave it 2 stars out of 5 or something. It was theatrical rock, and nobody was going to like it. And these are there are a lot of, if you ever do a Google search, if you're ever bored and you're a music fan, do classic albums that were originally panned, and you'll see some of the Black Sabbaths and some of the Led Zeppelins, and Meatloaf was one of them that nobody thought this was any good, and then it's still 45 years later, Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad, and Anything for Love, and Anything for Love's a different album, but so anyway, it is I think it was 45 years. It was either yesterday or Saturday. It was this weekend, and so yeah, the nostalgia of the music, but sometimes the story behind the music is just as interesting. And his was a good story. And I think actually his daughter, who used to sing backup for him, is married to someone famous, like the lead singer of Anthrax or something like that. But his daughter is married to a famous musician too. So anyway,
nice.
So there's my Meatloaf story. 45 years,
good.
Bad out of hell.
Nice. I enjoy it.
I would sing it to you, but we'd get shut off because I sing so much like I almost sound just like him. And
that's what I was going to ask you. Are you going to listen to Meatloaf today? Like, have you listened to Meatloaf in the car today?
I have not. You know what? I have not. But I might. I might crank some up because it's fun. It's hard to listen to Meatloaf and be in a bad mood.
I would totally agree with that. Every time he comes on, it makes you smile.
It does. It makes you smile.
Anything before we jump off today? Was there anything eating at you? Anything from the weekend that's just itching at you? And again, it's okay if there is.
Yeah, I'll save it for my afterthoughts for tomorrow because I do have something, but I'll save it.
Okay, that was a good one. There's so much going on. What a sports weekend! Just to end it on that. I mean, just NBA going on. You had the World Series, both games going on. You had the whiteout, high school football, just a crazy, crazy sports weekend.
October is, it's a good month because it's the end of baseball. It's football's kind of really hitting its sea legs, and then if you're an NBA, NHL fan at all, anytime a new season starts, there's this kind of rebirth and there's an excitement to it. So, and they're all this perfect storm in October. So it is fun.
There was I think it was a 1 hour span yesterday where all within the hour, the Phillies were closing out. The Bryce Harper home run happens. Blazers, Lakers, LeBron James tried to score a game winner. Damian Lillard tried to score a game winner. And then there was a football game that was coming down to the wire. And all of this was happening simultaneously at the same time. It is a really, really good time for sports.
No, October is, and it's starting to get cold, so you start to stay in more, and it starts to get dark earlier, so you start to stay in more. But this weekend was nice, so everyone was out more, and we got a couple more days of nice before fall finally gets here.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news, and thank you as always to Weis Markets for being the title sponsor. Be sure to go there for all your grocery all your grocery needs, your trick-or-treating needs. Right? And your Thanksgiving needs coming up around the corner. Thank you again to Weis Markets. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We will see you guys tomorrow.